Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the show. This is Any Kind of Media. We are your hosts. My name is Ocean Subiano.
I'm Taylor Vera.
And on this episode of Our Take, we're bringing to you our episode 3 reaction of Prime Video's original series titled Lord of the Rings of Power. This episode premiered on September 2nd. We are on the 3rd episode. We will be bringing you guys a episode-by-episode reaction / breakdown because this is a fandom that's, near and dear to me and Taylor's heart. And we have been, if you guys watched our initial impressions video, we have really been enjoying it. So we're gonna bring a episode by episode review. And so Taylor, we'll do this, in typical fashion. Yep. Obviously, we'll talk about it spoiler free first, let you guys get an idea of what's going on. Give it a quick score, and then we'll dive into some spoilers. Okay. So Taylor, how did you feel about episode 3?
I really liked it, just as much as the first 2 episodes. Been loving the show. Still do. I do really like this episode because I feel like it gives you a lot of information. As far as the story and how it's going with a lot of characters. And I do think it's a good gauging point for viewers if you have not made a decision on whether or not you want to stick with the show or not.
Gotcha. So what you mean is, like, if your interest hasn't been piqued or grabbed by the end of this episode, then going forward is probably not going to get any better for you.
Yeah, for the most part. Because I feel like it lets you know what's going on in the show.
Okay. Yeah, I would agree with you in the sense that I'm still really enjoying the show. I'm just so excited to be back in Middle Earth again. I know we talked about it in I know we talked about it in our initial episodes, but that to me that's what's just so compelling about this show is that it feels like the rest of the Lord of the Rings. You know what I mean? It doesn't feel like this is show done by a completely separate company that's never didn't work on the originals. Like, this feels like the same thing to me. Just with the visuals, the music, the storylines, like it just feels the same. So for me, that's what's just bringing me back every week and being like, let's get more. And I will say that these episode runtimes are pretty long. Each one is basically a movie in and of itself. This episode was 70 minutes, a 70-minute runtime, ladies and gentlemen. So if you guys are planning on watching the show, don't expect to binge it all in one night unless you're hardcore.
I mean,
you gotta be hardcore.
It's on the original extended trilogy. So.
You know what's crazy is the 3 episodes that are out, the total runtime is still less than the extended version of the first movie, which is crazy.
But the last movie is super long.
The last movie is insanely long, like almost impossible to watch in one sitting. However, it's so good that you can't stop. But if you guys are planning on watching it, just be aware that each episode, so far, the shortest time running is 65. I believe episode 2 was 65, episode 1 was 68, and episode 3 was 70 minutes. So you're looking at over 3 hours of watch time already, and we're only on episode 3.
As far as I'm concerned, it could be even longer if they wanted. I'm in.
No, I 100% agree with you. I'm sure some people out there are like, oh my gosh, why is this so long? But in my head, I'm like, give me more.
Got any more than that time?
Got any more of them episodes?
Yeah, that's how I felt about the original trilogy, and I feel the same here. Like, I don't care as long as it is, just I'll take it.
Yeah, if it's this, like if it continues to be what this show is so far, I would agree with you. Give it all to me. Let me have it. So, with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, there's a lot of things that we want to talk about just because we're, just super excited about what happened in this episode, and I'm gonna accidentally let spoilers slip. So before we do the spoiler alert, just a real quick score. I'm personally sitting at an 8 because of just the specific storytelling that went on in this episode, and I'll talk more about it right after the spoiler alert. But I'm sitting at an 8 for this episode. Still super enjoyable, super good. I enjoyed it. There's just one kind of thing that I just didn't really particularly care for personally.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm gonna give this episode a 9 as well.
Continuing with the 9 streak.
I'm enjoying.
How many 9s? How many episodes rated as a 9 does it take to push it over to a 10? Like what? How many?
I don't know if I could really even answer that because I feel like it would have to be
like the whole season's got to be 9. Oh, okay. So
because it could be really good. But if it doesn't stick the landing,
gotcha.
Then I can't give it a 10.
That's true. I didn't think.
So if it keeps going and then we get like some epic like
Game of Thrones,
Two Towers, Helm's Deep, or like Minas Tirith, massive battle, and it's awesome.
100%, it's a 10. Yeah.
If they give us something like that, I'm in.
Yeah. But how could they not? Like they'd be insane not to. They'd be insane not to.
I don't know. I don't know. We'll see. Because I mean, as far as I'm aware, too, there's actually like 5 seasons.
So
already
I know that season
planned.
2 was officially renewed. Season 2 has been officially renewed by Amazon. I'm not 100% sure beyond that, but I did see an article yesterday that season 2 was officially renewed by Amazon.
I don't remember where it was, but I remember seeing something like it. I don't know if it was like the script or whatever, but they were already planning
show writers
for 5.
wanted 5.
Well, possibly more, but like they were aiming for 5. Yeah. Which, if you're spending this much money, you might as well go all in.
Yeah. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to dive into some spoilers. So if you have not seen episodes 1 through 3 yet, highly recommend you go and take the time to watch them before you get into these spoilers, because the things that happen in these episodes, in my opinion, need to be experienced firsthand. Hey, turn your volume up on your TV, shut off all the lights, sit down on the couch with some popcorn, and then just enjoy the 3 hours of the episodes so far.
Yeah.
And with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, this is your official
spoiler alert.
All right, so I'll get the I don't want to call it bad because I don't think it's wrong. I don't think they did anything wrong or did anything bad. It's just a personal preference of mine, and I just want to get it out of the way so we can talk about the good stuff to the end of the video. But I just particularly don't care for the fact that despite the 70-minute runtime, they failed or just chose not to touch on all the storylines that they have introduced so far, right? For specifically, in this episode we saw nothing of Elrond and the Durin storyline or anything with that. And if I remember correctly, we didn't say anything about the High King or anything, right? Anything on that side of the story, right? We didn't say anything about the High King, right?
So.
Yeah,
not
so
since 2.
We didn't see anything with that. And who is it that Elrond is with right now? The other elf that he's supposed to be working with?
Oh,
Celebrimbor, yeah. So
he's actually not physically with him right now.
Right, but he's supposed to be working with him.
Yeah.
So we didn't see anything of that storyline. And like I said, I don't think it's wrong. It's just the storytelling that they chose for this episode. But I just think that with a 70-minute runtime, there's plenty enough time in there to just touch on the story. And for me, I want to know. I want to be able to see and develop each storyline as the season progresses.
Yeah, that's fine. I do enjoy those 2 characters.
Yeah,
I really loved them since the moment they hit the screen.
Yeah,
and it kind of sucks we don't see them in this episode, but. I overall I think it's fine because it doesn't match the I guess the tone they were trying to set for this episode.
Okay.
Because it really builds on the fact of Sauron and the evil forces and orcs and all that are coming
brewing.
back. They're here.
Brewing, and
they never left. They've just been hiding, and now their plans are starting to get put in motion. Right.
Okay.
And I think they just wanted to really lean into that versus combining what I would consider a very happy, uplifting moment that we had from the previous episode.
The tones.
Even though we do get a little bit of that with the Harfoots, but it's not nearly as much as
the Durin and
Elrond and Prince Durin, right?
Okay.
So I think it's fine. I imagine we're gonna see them next episode.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if next episode features them heavily, like it's reversed, you know. And
I also think it's because in this episode we get some new characters and further development with some of the other characters that we had before. So I guess it kind of just fills in for those particular characters.
Yeah. I felt like the first 2 episodes, they were developing all the storylines at the same time, right? They introduced everything that I think so far we've kind of seen everything that there is, like all the different storylines that there are so far. And then they kind of just developed them all together as they intertwined with each other. And we were slowly figuring out, how do these storylines intertwine? How are these things connected together? And then this episode, it was like kind of like, okay, well, we're just going to examine this one particular strand. And like I said, I don't think it's wrong or bad. It's just not my personal preference on how to do the storytelling because of the way that they started it. If they had started it where like each episode was focused on one storyline, then it'd be different. But I was enjoying the learning about each storyline slowly and as they go. So, going forward, we'll see what they choose to do, whether they continue to focus on one element at a time or they kind of develop everything together, or if the events of one storyline develop the other without having to see it. I don't know.
Right. That's how I feel about it. Is in the beginning it worked because everything is new and we're kind of just learning all the characters, and now they're trying to start developing like the main plots and stuff.
Gotcha.
And so not everything necessarily lines up at the same time. They're all still like relatively close to each other.
Yeah.
But because now everybody's doing different things, it wouldn't make sense to be immediately happening after another. Like, because there's a lot of big decisions and stuff going around, like around this time.
And maybe this is
this episode.
Maybe you're a little bit more accepting of it because you understand the time differences between the different events. Maybe because that
could be. Yeah.
A lot of people don't realize that this storyline. According to what they talked about before the show came out, the storyline was supposed to span like thousands of years, right?
Right.
So I don't know what events take place in what order. So maybe because of that, I don't really see it the same way you do.
Right. I mean, that's true, which, I mean, I'm sure that's probably the case. But like, even if you take it like in a small... Like if you take it in small steps of like Elrond and Prince Durin, the last thing we saw of them was him sitting at a table with his father, and then letting him know what Elrond was proposing.
Right.
They're not just gonna immediately decide what to do right then and there, so that's gonna take a few days or whatever.
Okay.
When we last left off with Rondir, he was a prisoner, and we saw that he was he had met fellow elves, but on top of that, they were trying to plan how to escape, plotting out like, we can reach up the side of the trench here. We need to just find the nearest like sight line. All this planning and stuff, which typically.
No, that happened in this episode.
No, well, yeah, but I'm saying like that
I see what you're saying.
in itself like takes time.
Right.
You can't just. I mean, I'm sure there's somebody who could just. Make a mind that stuff immediately, but like for most people, that usually takes a while.
They gotta watch the
you learn patterns, behaviors, and what they're doing and stuff, patrols and all that kind of stuff, and so it usually takes time. So even something as simple as that, like it takes more time, and then like the huge development we get with Galadriel with her and the Halbrand. I keep forgetting his name. And then, I mean, even himself, we learn a lot about him, which was expected.
Yeah, I knew that.
But, I mean, they get saved and they go to Numenor, which I think I had texted you about.
I think we talked about it a little bit in the last episode,
which
the potential of seeing Numenor.
Super exciting.
Yeah.
It's the same as Khazad-dûm because it's just something I never thought that we would see.
Right. Like, physically.
Yeah, physically see.
Before we dive into that, I have a question, and this is something that I just don't know because I don't know enough about this time period, and maybe you can answer it for me. And it's why are the orcs Let me see. I know I have a picture in there somewhere. Maybe not. Why are the orcs so different? Like, they're sensitive to light, right? I don't remember orcs ever being sensitive to light. Like, to the point where it was, like, burning them. Like, it literally was burning them like they're vampires. Yeah. And then on top of that, they're white versus, you know, dark and, they're pale and gross. And they're just significantly more ugly, I'll say. Like, they're just...
Also tribal.
Yeah, very tribal, yeah. But they're just significantly scarier and uglier.
Real freaky.
And freaky. So why is that? Versus what we know from, you know, the Lord of the Rings and the Fellowship and all that stuff. The original
trilogy, yeah. I think that's just due to... it's always been that way. It's just we never saw that initially. I mean, we kind of did in The Hobbit, or in the new Hobbit. Because I watched that a little while ago too, and those orcs actually were kind of ugly too and a little freaky versus the original trilogy. Yeah. Not that those look great either, but those look like your stereotypical idea of like
what I would but these ones,
orc. But these guys, they're freaky, totally different. Man. But I think it's just a evolution / regional thing.
Okay.
Because I believe they're in the Southlands at this time, so it makes sense why they got the whole tribal thing going on. The Southlands are known to be more desert-oriented. And since they've been hiding for so many years, they've probably just adapted to be living in the dark. And that's why, like, even the first orc we saw, you know, it's, like, big. He's got those, like...
beady looking
cloudy eyes, because they can't actually see well, but they might use, like, some kind
of... senses.
Other sense to make up for that. And they had, like, claws for digging and stuff. So they kind of just adapted to their environment. Okay. And it feels the same way for this, but it's just now since evil is their plan is starting to get in motion. They're coming out of their holes and imprisoning all these people and building their trench system to move around.
Okay,
that's how it is.
So it's just kind of like a evolutionary thing because this took place so long ago compared to the Fellowship of the Ring that we know. And
I mean, that's in the future, but
and is there like how are orcs made? Because I know Uruk-hai are like made out of mud and shit, right? Like they're like crafted basically.
Yeah, well, Uruk-hai were a specific breed that Saruman designed as a upgraded orc
version of orc. So are orcs just a natural occurrence, or were they made by like Morgoth or something? Or
well, they were initially created by Morgoth. Yes. Okay. So the reason why orcs were initially created are the opposite of elves. So elves were like, if Jesus was like, this is my these are the like my kind of like an angel. The wizards are more like angels.
Sure.
But they're similar, I guess, in sense, but like they're like the perfect image. Okay. And then Morgoth is like, I'm gonna take that and turn it into crap, and it's the complete opposite. Okay. So they're just
ugly and gross. And
like evil, horrendous. Yeah.
Okay, and then how do we know how they reproduce, or like how more are made? Is it a
is
there some kind of intercourse that happens, or is there?
I don't think so. I think it's just like a. Honestly, I mean, I can't remember the exact details, but I'm pretty sure that it's not like a normal...
It's not a normal way of reproduction.
Yeah, it's like a weird, freaky, dark magic kind of thing.
Okay. Maybe if one of you guys know how orcs... Because I'm just curious to know, like, how do you go from having a giant battle, killing, like, a bunch of orcs get killed, you have a limited amount of orcs, and then over time building them up, right? Because if they're like a normal animal where they reproduce, then I understand it takes time, and it would make sense because they were in hiding for so freaking long. But if they're not, like, what is it like? How do they, like, do they make them like Uruk-hai are made, or like, you know, maybe one of you guys can answer that for us down in the questions or comments below. Sorry. Yeah. But so
orc babies,
baby orc. All right, let's move on from the scary orcs and let's talk about something unbelievably beautiful. And what I am referring to is the island kingdom of Numenor.
It's insane.
It's unbelievable.
I was so excited. As soon as the episode starts and we find out that, literally, as soon as you see the characters, which you find out later is
Well, let's save that because let's just talk about the visuals first, and then we'll talk about the big reveal of this episode. In my opinion, it's the biggest deal.
Talk about the shot of Numenor?
No, it's just I just really enjoyed the way that Numenor looked. Like I don't know.
I do too.
I don't really know anything about Numenor.
I wanted to explain before I said how.
Just don't mention who gets revealed because I think that's huge.
Basically, whenever you see the shot of Numenor, just imagine the first time you see the city of Minas Tirith, but times 1,000.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's huge because the island of Numenor was a gift from the elves to the specific group of humans that live there because they are the ones that actually helped defeat Morgoth. Yeah, they stood these with the humans elves, are supposed to be the group of humans, they're almost like the elves, but the humans. So everybody else on Middle Earth is the lesser. I'm not saying lesser in the sense of they're worth nothing.
They're supposed to be their
bloodline human. Is it's been diluted and they've drifted away from the religion and the entire culture of what the initial beginning was.
Okay.
This is where Aragorn's ancestors are from.
Right.
Which is what gave him, his birthright.
Yeah.
It's insane. The shot when it's just standing over it, because it's massive. God. And it's so beautifully designed and stuff. And when I say Minas Tirith, I mean you can actually see very similar details. I was just gonna say,
you can definitely see
the architecture and stuff,
from,
and it makes sense.
I guess Minas Tirith would take inspiration from Numenor,
because Minas Tirith was essentially the last, if you want to call it an outpost of the Numenorians in Middle Earth. After that, that's why the Minas Tirith still represents and is designed and follows similar structure to Numenor, but and that's where their king was and stuff. It's still got the white tree, which is iconic, which you see, and it's alive.
Alive and blooming and beautiful.
But you can definitely see the similarities between the architecture and stuff, and it looks great. So super excited to see it.
Yeah. No, I thought it was amazing. Hold on one second. Sorry.
I do. I'll probably get into it later because it's just real small. But I do have some, which is I had similar problems earlier in other episodes. But there are certain things I was a little disappointed about with as far as the Numenorians go. Which is similar to how I felt the elves, but it's super minor, so I don't really care that much.
All right. Let's talk about. Or actually, I guess I have another question. I know the name Numenor. I know it for some reason, but I don't know why I know that name. I don't know where I get it from. So what if you're somebody like me
at some point?
Yeah, I was gonna say if you're somebody like me that has pretty much only watched the original trilogy, the Hobbits, or the Hobbit movies, I should say, and very little exposure to the actual literature and stuff of J.R.R. Tolkien, why would I know at least know the name Numenor?
I could be wrong, but I feel like somebody mentions it at one point, and I feel like it's either Gandalf or Elrond, which would have to be one of them anyways.
My knee-jerk reaction is that somebody talks about it in the Fellowship of the Ring when they're paddling down the river and they come through. You know the two giant statues that like have their hands out.
Yeah, because you actually do see similar.
Yeah, you see very similar architecture
and, when they enter Numenor. Yeah.
So the
two kings.
Yeah. And I feel like at that point, somebody says something about
which would either be Boromir. I would say if it happens at that point, it's either Boromir, which would make sense because it
might even be Aragorn.
I don't think so.
No,
because Aragorn in Lord of the Rings,
he gave up.
He's totally like.
He chooses not to
separated himself from all that stuff. I'm sure he obviously he knows about it.
Sure.
So I'm pretty sure it would have been Boromir which to me sounds the most likely, because he's a captain from from Gondor. So like that's same kind of descendant, or it would be Legolas just because he's an elf and elves know so many things because they live forever.
It might have been Legolas. I don't know. I'm gonna have to look at that and see, or just look up and see if there's any.
He might have just been like, it's the
blah blah blah
from kings from like Numenor or something, or Numenorian kings or something like that.
Yeah, because I know that name. Like I know that name. So I was just curious, and if you knew off the top of your head what why an average.
Yeah, that does sound like it could be at that point. So.
Okay, all right. Let's talk about what in my opinion is the biggest reveal of this episode, right? And I think there was a lot of people guessing that this is this was coming, and because at the end of episode 2, Galadriel and Halbrand are on a broken raft just drifting at sea, and they come upon a ship, and the episode ends with a figure being, you can't tell who it is because there's light and stuff, and that's the end of episode 2, right? And a lot of people that in my like Instagram and stuff or articles that I read, a lot of people were speculating at who that could be,
right? And
a lot of people were wrong, but also right at the same time.
weren't far off.
Yeah. So that person ended up being, how do you say his name? I don't want to butcher it.
It's the E one, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so
right?
I believe when we first meet him, he is Captain Elendil.
Is it Elendil or is it Elendir?
I think it's Elendil.
Let's make sure we're saying that right. But
he gets promoted later.
But that's also a name that I know as well, for some reason, and obviously we find out why, because as the episode progresses and you're introduced to Captain Elendil or Elender, who runs the ship that rescued Galadriel, and he takes them to Numenor. You find out who that person's son is.
Yeah, which is who people thought he was.
Right. So later on, we find out that the son of Elendil, I'm going to say Elendil because I think it's Elendil, is none other than Isildur himself.
Isildur!
Cast it into the fire!
Yeah, that's the guy.
Yeah.
But as a kid.
Right. So I think he's a young adult, or maybe like a late teenager. And we get introduced to him. And Isildur is a name that everybody should know if you have watched the original trilogy and like Lord of the Rings, you should know who Isildur is because he's heavily referenced and shown multiple times throughout the movies. And Isildur,
Elendil.
Is it Elendil?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's Elendil.
Yeah. Sorry, it took a while because huge.
It's all good. It's all good. So Isildur is the great times however many it is.
Yeah.
Grandfather of our boy Aragorn, and he is who Aragorn comes from. That gives him his claim to the throne of Gondor.
Yeah.
And that's why Aragorn is so cool.
I mean, he's cool for many reasons, but...
Well, I just mean that's where he gets his cool from.
Yeah.
Because Elendil seems like he seems dope.
He seems badass.
He seems like I'm just waiting for him to pull out his sword.
I can already tell he seems like one of my favorite characters.
I can already tell that when he pulls out his sword, he's gonna wreck shit.
Like right now, he's like super cool and like chill,
and just like
But you can tell he's very similar to Aragorn, where he's just low key.
Right. Once if he needs to, he can turn it on and just he will end you.
Because I even there's this moment I loved when he. Just like Aragorn, he just whips out Elvish and starts talking to Galadriel casually. And she's like, "You speak Elvish?" And he's like, "Of course I do."
It was such a great moment. Yeah. That was such a great moment because it very just what you said. It just reminded me of like the first time we see Eowyn, right? No, Arwen. Sorry, Arwen. First time we see Arwen. Yeah, I agree, but I just for some reason get it mixed up.
I mean, she's cool, but you stay with Faramir.
Yeah. So the first time we see Arwen in the woods, and he's asking her for help with Frodo,
and they're like exchanging, like, "Oh, I'm gonna look for this. Yeah. You go find this. We'll be back up here." Like,
it was just such a it just reminded me of that, and I was just like, "Oh, that's so cool. I like that." But yeah, we get introduced to Isildur. Most people thought it was Isildur himself that was rescuing Galadriel,
but it's his dad.
It does make sense that he would be way younger at this time.
Yeah, he's only like he's still a cadet.
Yeah,
right now in training. So
which I'm guessing is late teens. Probably. Yeah. So I don't know what's gonna happen moving forward with Isildur, because obviously we know what happens at the end. Like we know Isildur cuts the hand of Sauron.
Well, I mean, we know.
Takes the ring,
we know the very end of his life.
That's what I'm saying.
Basically, I imagine we're just gonna follow him and his getting older, becoming officer, and all that kind of stuff.
Do you think he is going to be a key focal point of the show, or do you think he's just a character that they integrated into the show so that there was some connection that 99% of people would recognize to the original trilogy, and just reference him as they go?
I feel like he's honestly going to have a similar not timeline, but storyline, I guess, to Boromir, in the sense that he's a son of a high,
right?
Because even his father is from like a royal bloodline, of course, but he's like Aragorn in the sense that he doesn't actually like do anything about it. Like he's a captain, but he's not like way up there, even though he could be. Even though the queen or whatever her name is knows that,
because he came from noble blood,
right? So and like his talent came from like they're still very tied into like the old ways of like knowing history, being like speaking Elvish and all that kind of stuff. Because I guess at this point Numenor is kind of like done what humans do and just get overconfident and
we don't need you.
Oh yeah, we're better than you, like, and just cut off all ties with the elves and all that kind of stuff, which makes sense. But
which I found interesting. I guess I just like when they started talking about it, I was like, oh, typical humans.
Yeah, like, exactly. Like it makes sense. Yeah, it makes sense. It's disappointing because it's like you're supposed to be the best of
what humanity has to offer, and you guys are still pushing away else.
Which to me, like, makes sense. That's how it should be, because that's just like, let's be honest, we're terrible.
Yeah, it's just who we as humans are. You know,
we do what we do. But I just think he's gonna be similar to Boromir. So he's gonna grow up, become a great warrior.
Yeah.
Move his way up to captain and commander eventually, because he later becomes a general later, and leads the army. And then succumbs to the power to the ring, just like Boromir did.
Interesting. Okay.
That's what humans do. There's a reason why we got the most rings.
Yeah.
The easiest to
control.
Yeah.
All right. He wasn't the only person of nobility that we were introduced to as well, right? Towards the end of the episode, we find out that, well, first off, I'm just say Halbrand can fight. Dude is a menace.
I love the scene when we do see him fight. These guys, like, the Numenorians, so they're like, oh, we're the shit, whatever.
To be cream of the crop,
and he's like a stranger that just stumbled, they got saved or whatever, so they just expect him to be like a little like peasant or whatever. Right. And he did warn you.
Yeah, he said, please don't do this.
And I'm telling you, you
can tell. You can tell.
Those guys clearly didn't have the ability to read somebody.
Right.
Because there's a difference between somebody blatantly being afraid of you and saying, please don't hurt me. Like,
right.
I don't want any problems.
Yeah.
Versus how he says it. Because you can tell by his body language.
And you can tell by his tone.
He's saying it for your sake.
Yeah. He's saying, please don't do this.
Don't fuck with me. But he's saying it in a way that sounds like cowardice. Right. But he's just trying to hide it. And they just have to call his bluff.
Mess them up,
yeah,
dude.
he jacks him up.
Yeah. I kind of squirmed a little bit when he broke the dude's arm against the doorway. And then, like, it's one thing to watch somebody get the arm break. And then the dude was, like, moving around the arm. And you can see the little, like, bone ends. You can see the bone ends, like, moving in the skin. I was like, ooh, it's a little gross.
Yeah, but, yeah, I loved
it. I was like, dude, Halvin, you're a stud.
Yeah.
You're a dog, dude.
It makes sense, too. Because, like you said, we find out that he is supposed to be a king.
Right. He was, right? I guess maybe is it that he was a king and he like removed himself because he didn't feel like he was fit to lead, or was he supposed to be the king?
I could be wrong, but from what I remember, it's sounding like when they were describing it, he was like a prince that was going to be king, but he refused it because his people were aligned with Morgoth and stuff and all that. And he kind of just felt like shit.
Yeah, I don't want any part of that. Yeah,
which is how Aragorn. It's kind of like how Aragorn felt.
Kinda, yeah.
Because he comes like way later, so yeah,
right. So there's a lot of things that were introduced to us during this episode, or not. I guess not introduced. There's a lot of like big story developments, or no, that's not the word. Character developments. There were a lot of character development that happened in this episode. And
there's story development too.
Yeah, there was. Obviously there was. But what I'm talking about specifically is that we were introduced to Isildur. We know that Isildur is part of this story. We don't know to what capacity.
Yeah, I think, at this point, his dad is more involved. Because he actually gets promoted, and then he gets attached to Galadriel to like
he's supposed to take care of her
bodyguard kind of
which is
or security guard rather.
They go on a nice little ride through the country.
Yeah, they go back to his like hometown or whatever. So
they go to the Hall of Lore, right?
Yeah, which is where he was from.
Oh, is that where? Oh, okay. Which I guess all this stuff is it's just interesting to me. It's just interesting, like. They have something called a Hall of Lore, where it's basically just a library.
But it's just a massive library. But I guess was famously designed by like some famous elven
person that Galadriel recognized and still lives there, but we never saw him yet.
Yeah. One thing I thought was strange was probably the only thing that stuck out to me as being like weird in this entire episode was this.
Yeah, it was a little weird, right?
Like. So because he's like, oh, it's about a day's ride. And she's like, a ride? Because I guess, she just hasn't ridden a horse in a while.
Horses, right? So yeah.
And you see them riding the horses of it. It was like, super dramatic, great shots, and then it does this weird, like slow motion close up on Galadriel.
She's like super happy.
Yeah, she's like super excited. It's like I get it, but like.
I think what they were trying to do. I think what they were trying to do was broaden her character, because all we know is a hardened Galadriel, a battle-hardened.
No, what we know
Kristen
is
Stewart,
a Kristen Stewart Galadriel,
right? One facial expression kind of thing, and so I think they were trying to just expand. All right,
she has two now.
Yeah, basically, she has two now. So,
but it was like
it was just awkward. It was
very weird.
It was awkward.
Like it's like it wasn't over exaggerated like happiness, like which to be fair, somebody could feel that way about horses. It just feels out of place in the show.
Right. The level of what it was, like I could totally understand her riding for the first time again, or for the first time in a long time. She feels happy on her way to a place where she can learn more about her quest. But she just looked really weird. Yeah. It was just awkward.
I do like that they have color coordinated horses, coincidentally.
of course. I love black horses, though. They're just so beautiful.
They're both nice horses.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would for sure go with the black one.
It's
just cooler.
Something about it, you know? All right.
Black stallion.
At the House of Lore, or Hall of Lore, Galadriel finds out that the symbol that she found in the first episode is not actually a symbol, but a location, and it's in reference to the Southlands. And then we see a whole bunch of... We get a lot of story development on Arondir's storyline. Yeah. And at that time, we find out that he had been captured by orcs. So that scene at the end of episode 1? Is it the end of episode 1 that happens? When he gets pulled into like the weeds or whatever. We find out that he's captured, and then we find out the rest of his like crew got captured as well. The rest of
Is it the same people?
It's the same people.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It's the I don't know what to call them because I don't know if they're a crew or like what.
Well, if it's the same people, it's the same company that he was from.
It's an elven company that was captured. Well,
like
they were all captured.
Watchmen company.
And then you see.
I thought it was different elves. So
no, it's the same guys. And then you see a bunch of other prisoners that the orcs have captured, and they're all digging. And we know that the orcs were digging tunnels because there was one underneath the lady's house. But this one was a little bit different. It wasn't a completely submerged tunnel.
Trench.
It's just a trench that they were covering so that the orcs could move. Which from the aerial shots looked like they had been digging for
pretty far.
Freaking.
It's kind of insane. Like nobody.
Yeah, nobody has noticed. Yeah. And then we get like a solid 30 minutes of Arondir and his crew trying to figure out how to get out. Escape, go get help, the typical prison break type of thing, which, I mean, I know we've seen like 100 probably prison breaks, but I mean, those guys got some moves, dude. I never seen anybody use a chain like they did.
Yeah. No, he fucks them up.
He messed them up with just the chain attached to his foot.
He does some fancy ass.
Yeah, I mean, which we would expect from elves. So
yeah.
I thought it was really
because
cool.
they're building up this character to be like a badass, which I'm all for because he's cool.
All for it. All for
Please
Arondir.
don't ruin him later. Keep it going.
I had a picture. All for Arondir's badassery.
He's basically got to replace like Legolas.
Yeah. Unfortunately, not unfortunately, but there's also some interesting scenes of the dynamic between the different orcs. You can tell there's obviously a hierarchy in the orcs, and
well, yeah, they have ranks just like everybody else.
Well, yeah, but what I mean is like we kind of get introduced to the levels. Like we find out who is at what level, and then there's the top level, which what do they call them? Adar. Adar. Yeah, Adar.
Something like that.
Who is Adar was apparently another name for Sauron back in the day.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah. However, do you think the person that we see at the end of episode 3 is Sauron? Do you think that's him?
Well, that person is definitely an elf.
Yeah, I definitely could tell.
Which definitely could be. Because at this point in time, like I said, I believe he is supposed to be an elf. And he's supposed to go by the name of Anatar. So I guess maybe
they just changed his name. Adar.
Yeah.
I have a sneaking feeling that it's not Sauron.
It probably. I mean, I don't think it is honestly because I feel like it's not. It's too obvious.
Yeah, it's too obvious. It's too convenient. Yeah. Almost. And I feel like it's too early to be introduced to.
Definitely
to who Sauron is.
Yeah,
in the physical form.
Right.
So I don't think it's him.
I don't either, but
it could be.
Like I said,
maybe it is.
I think they're purposely just doing like these little things here and there to throw you off the.
I think
trail.
it's distracting. It's a distracting storytelling device, and I think it's going to end up being like. I don't know if it's going to be like an imposter kind of thing. Maybe.
I don't think that far. I think it's just going to be a
lieutenant of
Sauron. Just one of his officers.
Okay. Yeah. I imagine we're going to find out in the next episode.
Because maybe it's like an evil wizard.
Maybe
or something.
Yeah, something. Yeah. Okay. That scene was pretty awesome though. Super sad when the.
What'd you think about the Harfoot development?
Yeah, so that was the last thing that I wanted to touch on before we end this episode, because there's development with the Harfoot story, but I feel like there's no development with this guy. Like, we still have no freaking clue who or what the hell this guy is. Or
there
at least
is
I
development, but it's very slow.
Yeah, I had no clue. So, there's different scenes throughout the episode with the Harfoots, and we understand that the Harfoots are a migrating colony, right? They move, and they're meant to, like, they want to stay out. They're trying to stay out of everybody else's business. They want nothing to do with the outside world.
Right.
They just live within their colony, and
I think they
Nori,
follow like seasons and stuff.
probably, yeah. Nori's family, the Brandyfoots, run into some unfortunate circumstances because her father hurts his ankle.
Yeah.
And it's part of their culture or whatever that if you're not able to carry your load and stay with the caravan, they just leave you behind.
Yeah. For the greater good.
Yeah. And it's such an interesting dynamic because they have this they're very serious and very strict about it, right? Like if somebody falls behind, they're left behind, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, then they have these naming ceremonies where they sit
every
down
time
all
they
together, and they
have the scene of I forget his name, but he's like the kind of like the elder of the group, and before they leave, they have their final just like you said, ceremony the night before they travel, and they name every single family or person that got left behind,
right, and how they ended up. Yeah.
And so it's like they're so close, yet at the same time,
if somebody falls behind, they don't do anything about it.
Yeah,
and it's such a weird dynamic.
Yeah, it is.
Such a weird dynamic.
I think it's just it's just weird because it's a mix of survival, but like
at the same time,
they have such a huge family focus, and it's just strange.
It is. It's a very strange, because in a lot of, you see it in nature. You see both sides of it in nature, right? Like different insects and animals and stuff that migrate. You see some that will help out the stragglers, and they'll help, and then you also see some that just leave the stragglers behind, because survival of the fittest. Yeah. But it's interesting, and at the end of the episode, we do see that the Brandyfoots are falling behind, and it's very somber.
Well, so what happens is
sorry.
This guy, while they're having the ceremony, starts going through
their camp.
Their camp for stuff, because he starts seeing the book that the elder guy had, or the paper that Nori stole, which has the constellations and stuff on it.
Right.
So he starts being I guess it's what he's looking for.
Right.
So he starts freaking out or whatever, or getting excited, and then falls over, knocks some stuff down, and then he gets discovered by the whole camp.
Right. And everybody freaks out that this person, that Nori has been talking to this person.
So after some arguing or whatever, they ultimately decide they're not going to do any kind of punishment or whatever.
They're not going to kick him out.
They're not going to just straight banish them. But the Brandyfoots do have to be at the very back of the caravan when they travel, which I guess in their culture means you're basically you're basically probably 98% going to be left behind.
Which makes sense, because we're not only just talking about literally left behind, it's also people get attacked. They talk about how some people were killed by wolves and stuff, and if you think about it from a hunting aspect, you
always get the predators back, the weakest one, the one lagging behind.
Yeah, predators go after the weakest prey, right? So it's basically a death sentence with the father's ankle condition already,
right? And
now they have to be at the back of the caravan
with this guy.
So, but it ends up actually, I don't know if it goes to their benefit, because we haven't seen the whole migration yet. But during the migration, they start to fall back from the caravan, and then this dude pops out, and this is probably like the biggest portion of character development we've seen so far of him, where he actually starts speaking and words.
Yeah, he comes up and he's like,
friend,
family. And then it's all about family. And then Nori's like, oh, let's
use him.
Yeah, let's use him. And so he helps push the car and stuff, which
he's like
his godsend for them. And he's huge.
He's huge. So he literally just kind of pushes the cart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know why they didn't think of that to begin with. Like,
yeah. It is interesting that they just be like, oh, you just carry the cart.
We're the most handicapped just because your father broke his ankle. Bro, stick him in the cart and get this guy to do it. Like,
what I will say is that my suspicions of who this guy is and what he is have more narrowly pointed towards some kind of wizard or something. I don't think it's Sauron. I will say I still don't think it's Sauron. I think he's some kind of
twist.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I said, it's more that way. Maybe it's like
could be the most evil wizard you have ever known.
Maybe like 90%. I feel like 90%. I think he's some kind of wizard.
I mean, he definitely feels like a Gandalf kind of
something like that. Don't know what kind of role he would play, but we'll see. A lot of good things in this episode, ladies and gentlemen. You did say you had one kind of...
Oh, yeah. It was just the fact that they still look good, but the Numenorians, their armor, I wanted it to be fancier.
More extravagant.
Yeah.
Yeah, same thing with the elves, right?
Yeah. It doesn't look bad, but it's just because I guess I just have this, like, expectation because of, because even what we see from the original trilogy... Even that armor looks to me more fancy than this.
And at that time, the elves are like on their way down.
Right, like that's like after a long period of like peace or whatever, and then evil comes back, whatever. So I would expect this being like the pinnacle of, like
elf rule,
elves and the Numenorians. Like I would expect it to be like insanely, gorgeous, but it still look good though.
In the end,
it's great.
In the end, ladies and gentlemen, we get this. They kind of start painting this picture for us of Galadriel realizing that the Southlands are in trouble, right? Then we actually see that the orcs are traveling through the Southlands, and Halbrand is like an heir to the Southland kingdom,
right? And
we have Isildur in the mix, and we have Arondir like fighting the orcs from the inside, basically. So all these points are kind of pointing towards some kind of conflict over the Southlands. And my final question to you, and this is a pure shot in the dark, because I just don't know. Again, this is something I just don't know, but it's kind of like a shot in the dark that I have. Are the Southlands what eventually becomes Mordor? Because looking at the map, like when they show the Southlands on the map, and in relation to like Numenor and the other kingdoms and stuff that we see on the map, it kind of seems to me like the Southlands and just like the way they look when we actually see them.
Yeah,
like
I mean, it does. It looks straight up like Mordor.
It kind of seems like it is what Mordor eventually becomes.
Yeah, which. I mean, yeah, pretty much. Like, it's hard to pinpoint exactly where they're showing us. Like,
in the
I know they like when they show, and she's like, "Oh, it's not a sigil. It's a location."
Yeah, you see the mountain range.
Looks like Mordor.
Right.
Like that literally looks like the mountain range that covers the south half. That kind of borders
Osgiliath
what will become Minas Morgul, and then the south. Which, so, like, if we're, like, just some random spot below that, then, yeah. I mean, that's what it could be, or what it will be.
I posed the question when I was watching it with my wife.
It is kind of confusing, too, because, like I said, the Southlands is supposed to be, like desert.
Yeah.
Like, just straight up desert, like, that's why, like, the people, kind of they look like, if you remember from the original trilogy, they're like the Haradrim were the Southland people, where they got all the wraps and stuff, and they look super cool, and they got the elephants.
Where the children come. Oh, that's the Southland.
Yeah, those are the Haradrim. Those are the people from the south that came up to support
the
Mordor advance into Gondor.
Oh.
They're the ones with the elephants and stuff.
Got it.
So that's
it's more
supposed to be. Yeah, like it's very like I don't want to say like Middle Eastern, I guess.
Yeah,
somewhat
somewhere over there.
Like style.
Mediterranean, maybe.
Yeah,
something like that. Yeah.
But in this show, it looks a little bit more green. Because, there's like forests and stuff. Like,
when you see a Rondir.
Right, and he pops up and like they're like looking around like it looks pretty green for the area. So
the particular area that they were looked more like a wasteland, but it did seem like it was kind of surrounded by some forest.
Well, yeah, because it just looked like they burned like the trail along the trench. But around them it looked relatively green.
Maybe it's a time thing, because it's so early.
Maybe it's just early.
Okay.
But later on, like that should definitely just be straight up desert. Like,
this is what I will say, ladies and gentlemen, about this show. It seems, and I said it before in the initial impressions, everything seems intentional to me.
Right.
Everything seems deliberate and intentional, and it seems like they have a plan to loop everything back together. So I'm super excited to see how that culminates and what that ends up being, and I am so stoked about the direction that this show is heading. And I personally just want to throw out to a lot of the people that have been giving this show hate, and like, because I've seen a lot.
Surprising amount.
And there's a surprising amount of people that don't like this show. And you know what, I understand if it's just a personal preference kind of thing, like if you just for whatever reason just don't like it, that's fine. But I've also seen a lot of people just ripping the show. Right. And like talking about things to me that don't even make sense, and I'm like, what are you watching? Like, how are you watching this?
It's confusing to me, like some of the things, and it's like I feel like you didn't know what you watched before. Like I think people just have a false image of like
what the original trilogy was,
of the original trilogy and stuff. And it's like I'm so confused.
Maybe it's that. Maybe it's because I have literally watched the original trilogy. I swear I probably have watched each movie over 100 times.
Yeah.
Throughout my lifetime.
Yeah, I've seen it many times.
Because like I can remember specifically there was like a 2-week span, and my siblings can attest to this because we all did it together. I specifically remember like a 2-week time span when I was living on Big Island, and it was during the summer and we literally had nothing else to do. We would go downstairs into our family room and we would literally just watch The Lord of the Rings on repeat.
Yeah.
Like straight up, not even joking.
Me and my siblings would do that too. On top of that, like I think I told you the first time we went over to my family's place, but not only did we always watch the original trilogy, me and my sister would always read and watch the original Hobbits, listen to the audiobook, and then we even like reenacted scenes around our house.
I used to make bow and arrows
like
all
we would
the
have
time.
Like spears and stuff, and like me and my brother would be like, all right, this time we're the Urukai. and then like my sister and my other brother would be like, oh, we're the elves, and then they would have like little arrows that they would have.
That's awesome.
And we would just play around, and it was awesome. We even had a little spot that I would call Shelob's Lair because it freaked me out because there was like so many like fallen logs and webs and shit. Yeah, so I was like, yeah, that's Shelob's Lair.
That's so funny because like in that regard we basically had the same childhood because I did that all the time,
and it was awesome.
Yeah, so maybe we just have a very, very biased and very I don't want to say informed, but just experienced opinion because we've just watched the original trilogy and so many times. I
don't know, it's just so confusing to me because like there's times like they'll be like, oh, this and this doesn't happen in such and such whatever book or whatever, and it's like sometimes it's true,
sure,
but
they
it's
have
like
to add stuff in.
But
it's not going to be
like it's not, it's never, nothing is ever directly
lifted from
whatever happened, like whether it's a book, a real event, it's never 1-to-1,
right?
Ever, for a reason, because you were trying to. It's still supposed to be entertaining,
right?
Or it's supposed to be a theatrical,
on
whatever,
top of
cinematic.
That, the only completed works we have are the original trilogy. Everything else from J.R.R. Tolkien is all fragmented. It's all bits and pieces, and you have to fill in the gaps.
Not even that too, but like the original trilogy, as much as I love it. And I don't hate it for this either, but it's not accurate. Like there's a lot of things that were changed in Peter Jackson's adaptation of Lord of the Rings, and I still love it.
Right.
But I have no like I don't care that it's not exact. It's It was still perfect.
And that's I think that's a big point that people are missing. I think people are trying for it to be too literal.
I think, everybody's just trying to be a fucking gatekeeper.
And I think it's more enticing, right? Like, think about your video title, right? If you're trying to put a video title out on YouTube, what's more enticing?
Of course, if we wanted views,
if you're talking shit,
we would be shitting on everything.
Yeah, people are gonna click on that before they click on a video that says, "Oh my gosh, this video is amazing." The
algorithm is built for it too, right? Because that's what people want.
People want controversy, right? So, I think that probably plays a little bit into it.
Partially, yeah. I mean, and the fact just because Jeff Bezos decided, look, I'm slamming $1 billion into this. That within itself, people are like, oh,
should be better.
It's $1 billion. It's not that good. It's great. I don't know what you're talking about.
Like, the visuals are pretty insane.
Yeah. And I think it's overall really great.
There's literally only one point that I can think of that I have seen subpar CG. There's only one point, and it's when in the very first episode when Galadriel's climbing the ice, and there's a shot of her jumping, and it's like a downward shot on her face.
That's what we see from the trailer.
You see it in the trailer.
Yeah, that's the weirdest.
That's the only
CG
time that I have, and that's off the top of my head. That's the only point I can think of that's bad CG. I mean,
that's got to be hard doing that.
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
Like, come on.
And even that wasn't that bad
wasn't that
either.
Bad. Yeah.
Like, I mean, you could clearly tell it was fake, but like, it wasn't that bad.
Yeah, it's not. Yeah, it wasn't horrible.
So I think I don't know. I'm hoping that this show outlasts the haters. That's what I'm hoping. I'm hoping that by the time this show ends, it will have been so good that all the people that were hating on it and shitting on it, right, like for the last couple weeks, just run out of things to say, and then it's just going to be.
It probably never will, but I just hope it just keeps going. I don't care.
Ladies and gentlemen, what did you think of episode 3 of Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power? Did you enjoy it? Are you in the same boat as us? Or if not, please let us know why. I'm genuinely curious. And I'm 100% open to hearing different opinions. If you have a different opinion, I'd like to hear it. And maybe, we can agree to disagree, because I still think this thing is dope.
Yeah,
but everybody is different. So let us know why. If you didn't like it, why? Why did you not care for this show so far? Please like, subscribe, comment. We appreciate you guys being here. Thank you guys for all the love and support we've gotten recently. It means the world to us.
Yeah.
Also, check out our Instagram and Twitter, Any Kind Media Cast. We'll catch you guys in the next one.
Bye, guys. Isildur.